So, I can just start by saying welcome. And this is pretty exciting to me um, that we're actually doing these meetings now just to let our members know what happened at membership assembly. Um, we've done this for a couple of years now, and I think it's bringing the information back in real time instead of writing some kind of report or something just seems like a really good thing to do. So, membership is is the governing body of ANA. The membership assembly elects the board of directors and and advises the current board on policy and votes on policy. So, it's a big deal meeting, and that's what I'm going to say about it. And there was a artist there who did this drawing in real time with people giving him things to draw. And so, was it Nick? Nick, did you take this picture? I think. Anyway.
I think
He got the
we,
graphic from the artist, and the artist come up.
yeah,
Oh,
I
okay,
signed
got
up for
it.
the email from him.
Got it. You could have taken credit.
Yeah.
So here are the objectives. Pretty exciting. And here's our group. Um, we did hill visits the first day we were there, and so this is our team. The person who is the Stephanie Whitwer is in the middle, and she couldn't be here tonight because she's speaking to another group. And she's the immediate past president of the ambulatory care nurses, and she's the org affiliate chair. So she's goes to all the ANA board meetings and reports on the organizational affiliates. And then the person who's to my, yeah, her name is Rachel, I think. Rachel. And
Natasha,
Natasha.
isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. And she's moving here from Oregon. She's just finishing up being on the board for Oregon nurses, and then she'll be joining MNORN and looking to get involved. And she lives in Rochester, which is the entry point for a lot of people who come to Minnesota if they're nurses. So that's my start. Now, Hilde, Nick.
Nick, you muted.
Do you want me to just go through or is the policy stuff, or is that the next slide?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about your first
I
one?
mean, it was my first time. It was hot, lots of walking, but other than that, it was fun. Um, it's my first time being to DC, so
Wow.
um, yeah, it was a lot of firsts for me. Um, so I mean, we talked. I think I still have in front of me all the AMA sheets still from that had all the talking points. So I won't probably go verbatim for what's on here, but the biggest one I think was the nursing as a professional degree. I'm sure most people have heard. It was the Department of Education. I think used that old definition from like 1960, I can't remember, 62, um, and dropped nursing as like a professional degree. So post bachelor's, it would cap student loans at 100,000 instead of, I believe it was, is it 200,000? I'm pretty sure that I think the Supreme Court is suspended as far as I know right now currently. Um, so it seemed pretty receptive to most of the people that we met with. Um, and I know, I think, was it you, Kathy, that was talking about words mattering, future down the line, that if we kind of just let this slide, it's kind of whirlwind. It gets harder to fight. It's an uphill fight later on. Then there was the um, workplace violence. Um, I know the Natalia that we were just talking about. She had lots of good examples from Rochester about um, people from the prison being brought in because they couldn't handle it, and then we end up, having them in an ICU and sedating them because they're violent, um, and I believe that one was the one that would require OSHA to have make the facilities have a specific like action plan in place. So, and I know in our meetings with representatives, a lot came up about, if you assault a police officer, there's repercussions if anywhere else in any other profession that someone's assaulted. But once you're kind of in the hospital, it's kind of a different story. So, and then there's lots of statistics on, 1 in 4. So we talked a lot about nurses that actually report um, having violence against them. So a lot of that's not captured in the data and the statistics. And then the cost of violence against nurses costing $151 billion per year. It's a lot. And then
Mhm.
the ICANN Act, which was Improving Care and Access to Nurses Act. Um, that was a lot of like Medicare, and I believe is the reimbursement rate is at 85% or 90% for APPs versus MDs and DOs. And we talked a lot about like diabetic shoes and APPs being able to put orders in for cardiac rehab, and like DMEs. And it was stressed on the sheet here that the bill does not supersede the state laws or change scope of practice because that's state by state. And then the Title VIII nursing workforce development programs. I think the big thing that we touched on was it was crazy to look at physician graduate medical education was $17.8 billion in mandatory funding, yet nurses make up the largest sector of the healthcare workforce, and our funding is about 305 million, and it was entirely discretionary. So I think we were asking for, is it 2 million more? I know, at least 610 million for workforce development programs and at least 215 million for National Institute Nursing Research. I know we talked a lot too about a lot of the policymakers. Some
Yeah.
did know about the education that, we have doctoral prepared nurses that do research. It's not all just bedside. So,
Mhm. So I had Nick on my team. How was it, Nick, to go in and they were the newbies?
I don't know. I don't feel like I did a lot of talking. I was kind of more learning. It's my first time, so I was a little, I wouldn't say nervous, but like getting the structure down and kind of how it all works.
Yeah. But you all had really good stories in the acute care and um, how we really don't know that. I think you guys did a really good job of explaining the impact on the bedside nurse too, and the stories that you had. And stories carry. And when you're going to meet with legislators or their staff, stories matter. And when you're at the bedside like that, you had a lot. Our team really had a lot of really good stories. You did too. So did Seth, I mean, and Natasha. I mean, you guys really had good things to say about all of these really. Seth being in graduate school, Natasha and actually Seth and Nick all talked a little bit at some point around the workplace violence and the Title VIII. So it was a good. I think our legislators really learned from you, and that is why we go is for them to get some education and understanding. So it was great.
And they're really like common sense, kind of like, why would you be against these kind of bills. And so it makes it more fun to be able to tell the stories without having to explain explain things in a way that's hard for them to understand. You know, these are pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. Christy.
I think you all might remember that, or feel like you're having deja vu because we have talked about these, some of these before, especially ICANN and Title VIII. And that's another thing is that even though sometimes, things are very common sense, it can take a long time to move legislation. And so I think, and another legislative strategy too, with the first one, nursing as a professional degree, there were three different types of bills that we were advocating for that were different angles on how we could have nursing still recognized as a professional degree. There has been some movement, like Nick said, on the nursing as a professional degree in the legislative, or I'm sorry, in the judicial system with staying. I was trying to find the most updated thing, and actually, there is some on the financial aid website, the federal student aid website on that. And then also another good thing to sign up for action alerts is, of course, the ANA's RN Action. It's just rnaction.org. And you all are probably familiar with the different action invites that they send out. Also, I saw AACN sent out, or the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, sent out an update today about Title VIII getting through the Senate Help Committee, which is health, education, labor, and pensions. So there is some movement on some of these. And I imagine we'll be back with it, kind of continuing our work on these things because, there's legislation and putting these things forth. There's a strategy to it. The stories help, and the persistence helps. And we can certainly follow up with our legislators at their local office too. That's an important thing to do as well.
So, Cami, do you want to talk about what you were asked at Representative Fishbach's office?
Uh,
The staff
oh,
person?
actually, what that was that fish box office?
Yeah.
It
It
was
was.
Fishbach.
Yeah, go ahead, Seth.
When we were discussing all of the programs, we came up to the Title VIII program. Um, and one of the pieces of information we shared was the discrepancy between what med students receive in funding versus nursing. And he seemed to be very interested to see like an infographic about that and potentially how it's changed over time. And we talked with, I forget his name, from
Tim.
ANA.
Tim.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tim Nainoff.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
about getting that infographic. And that's actually something he said that we ANA and would be able to use as part of their continued show, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
showing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and it really was about the number of physicians and the number of nurses and how much less Title VIII funds nurses get, even though the masses of people that would qualify are greater. So looking at that trajectory. Thanks.
Yeah, and then the other thing was that that staffer had worked for the PT Association.
Yes,
So he was in a place where you weren't really expecting an ally, you were finding an ally.
that's right. That's right. Anything else on this?
You know, maybe somebody could talk about the briefing we got because I think we had a really good briefing and Lauren Underwood's comments. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Christy, you want to talk about that?
I mean, it's great. Dr. Lauren Underwood, am I saying that correctly? She
Mhm.
is a nurse who is in a legislator. I cannot recall, I'm sorry, where she is from, but
Illinois.
Illinois. Okay. And it was really great to have her on as kind of our pep rally in the morning, and she really conducted it like a pep rally. She encouraged us to go forth with all of the things that we were going to do, but really talked about accountability, or well, I guess accountability in the sense of we've got to keep doing this. It's not just a one-time thing. We've got to have folks in DC, things like that. And then she also was another advocate for getting more nurses into the legislative bodies, whatever that may be. And so there's I believe that organization called Healing Politics, right?
Hmm.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Does some great work with nurses as candidates, and so I of the three sessions I've been to, that was my favorite. I think she had a lot of great energy, and she just does a lot for the nursing profession and healthcare and like community. She just really sees health and nursing. She's just very holistic, which I'm sure is shocking to people if you don't even if you don't know who she is. But it's like that's what we do. So I just it was a really great kickoff to the day.
Yeah, she was also kind of inviting us to speak with our legislators and stuff, to have them come into our workplace, wanting
Yes.
us to talk to them and kind of show them what we do and be a part of it and push more for nursing and all of that. And you kind of brought back her speaking. She did do a really good job just getting us all pumped up and ready to go.
Not that easy
Especially
first thing in the morning.
Well, yeah, and especially for that being my first time too, I wasn't sure what to expect. So it was a good speech from her.
Something else that I liked too is there seemed to be a lot of bipartisan support on a lot of the bills. And that was something when we were talking to different reps or their staffers that they were asking, oh, well, who's signed on this? So having to like know who supports it and seeing all of the different bipartisan support for all of it.
And for those who haven't had a Hill Day experience yet, for ANA or any other organization, a lot of places use Soapbox, and they're an organization that helps people coordinate all of this. So they coordinated all of the meetings. They put, who has signed on to what bill, what committees they're part of, if they're even out, if they're up for election, or if they're not running again, like they put that as retired, things like that. So they give you a lot of information ahead of time, just as far as knowing the status of different bills and things like that. So that is really helpful going into it, so that when they do ask, and they will, who else has signed off, and you also want to know if they have, because then you can thank them. So, and that's a really important thing. Like, oh, we already know that you all are in support of this. We really thank you for that kind of thing. So, so I think that makes the experience even greater, because it's hard to arrange those meetings, and they often change. That didn't happen to us this time, but it has happened before, where they'll change last minute.
Mhm. Oh, great. So then our next day so that's always the day before membership assembly. And so that was our Thursday. Then we went right into Friday morning. Well, there was some time on Thursday night. I don't know if anybody wants to talk at all about that, but we had um, we didn't put that in here, did we?
Mm-mm.
So do you want to talk about it at all, Kathy, or?
Sure. It was the honors and awards banquet, which was really, it wasn't a banquet, but it was a reception, and it was really nice. They had a couple of people who were um, put into the A&A Hall of Fame. One was Jackie Robinson, the baseball players, his wife, and the granddaughter, I think was the granddaughter who accepted that award. And but the talk about her and what she had done as a nurse, married to a baseball player, was she had a big platform. And then there were a number of awards for different people from different states. And, it's just always so nice to go to something like that and recognize the good work that people have done. It was a nice event, and ANA made it feel pretty special that night, I think.
Yeah, agree. So then we get up bright and early in the next morning and we end up at A&A Assembly. And this is where we start to learn about how the issues at hand, voting, all of those things. We have dialogue forums, elections, and new business. First off, there was the bylaws amendments. And I don't know, do we have somebody that was going to talk about that?
Yeah, Jenny.
Jenny is? Okay.
Yep. So we had so I sit on the ANA bylaws committee right now through the end of this year. It's a great committee to be a part of. So if bylaws are ever something you've been interested in or wanting to know more about, highly recommend applying. It's not an elected position, it's an appointed position. So you apply usually around every July. The deadline was a little bit earlier this year, but you apply and then to a multitude of different committees or standing committees that ANA has, and bylaws is one of them. But this was actually not a bylaws year. This year was every other year is typically a large bylaws year where we put a call out to the membership for any proposals or things that they would like to see changed in our ANA bylaws, and then they submit them to the bylaws committee by a certain date. We look through them. We see if there's ones that are really similar that, it's maybe a few words that are different that we could kind of put them together. And then they get submitted to the membership, and those are those who are going to be at membership assembly. Two that were held over from last year, because there were so many last year, and there was just a lot of discussions, and two that they wanted a little more work on was apportionment of votes and LPN LVN membership. The apportionment of votes one is mainly focused on how the votes are distributed based on the size of your state, or how do we separate all that, because we only have so many votes sitting within membership assembly, and it's basically just kind of how that all is distributed throughout all the different states. And so that one passed. That one didn't really have a lot of questions. It didn't feel like as many that were as from last year. The LPN LVN membership, they brought together a really large committee that had LPNs on it. It had past ANA presidents, current staff, current members from different states, and really just brought that forward. That one did pass. There's a lot of discussion and processes that are going to need to be figured out at the ANA level. Looking at the integration and implementation, states are all would have to change their bylaws to support this. If states are going to do it, not every state may do this, but at least on the national level, we, as members, if their state does not have it within their own state or hasn't gotten there yet, LPNs and LVNs, once this goes quote unquote live in 2027, would be able to join even at the national level. So, two things that we had in a separate bylaws form, and then they were voted on in the actual membership assembly meeting, and those were the two that passed. Next year might be another large year. I don't know, or maybe there won't be very many bylaw amendments. But if you're ever interested in it and have looked at like the ANA bylaws or even our own MNORN bylaws and have questions or want to see if things could be changed, always just reach out, and ask, because the worst thing that can happen is say, no, we aren't going to put it forward for an amendment. And sometimes there's history behind it, and there's things have been changed for a purpose. So we always encourage people to reach out and ask.
Any questions on that?
What was some of the discussion about the LVN integration?
So that one, I don't think there was necessarily people who were, there's people on both sides, but I think it wasn't that we didn't necessarily want to include people. It's figuring out where the right space and place is, as far as inclusion, numbers, and things of that nature. And a lot of it was logistical. There are a few states who already have implemented LPN membership. They knew that after last year it was gonna, potentially it was gonna be brought back for discussion. So some states already implemented it in their own state bylaws last year, like between last year and this year. I don't remember how many
And
states
some states had it before.
they did have it
And
before.
and so they had it before, and then they decided, well, we've done it now for a year, so let's put it at A&A. So that's really how it started.
And so I mean, I think it's, I think there's a lot of, a lot of it was about, just there's a lot of members who started as LPNs and then went to their RN and so on and so forth. Um, and so I mean, there wasn't as much discussion as I think there was last time. I guess I don't know if anybody else felt that, but having gone last year and this year, there was enough, there was a lot, but I don't know, it just didn't seem the same as last year. But it did go to committee, and I think that's where people, felt a little bit better because it was able to be reviewed by a committee of multiple different people, and just kind of looking at it. But I think the concern is that maybe not enough due diligence was done to make sure the figure out the how and the logistics. I know that's a concern that was brought up by many, is that we don't have the roadmap. And by putting it in bylaws, it's going to kind of it's making it a permanent thing, but we don't necessarily know some of the curbs and gutters. And depending on, versus putting it in a policy or procedure first, or trialing something and then putting it in, it's just a little bit different. So I think a lot of it was just logistical concerns.
Mhm. And
That
some wondered about using the organizational affiliate structure instead. Um, so that was brought up, and there was a lot of discussion too, Jennifer, I think, in the hearings. They did virtual hearings before membership assembly, so I think some of the discussion happened there. And and now, they've figured out, ANA so far has figured out that it'll start in 2027 for ANA, and that they will charge the same dues as for RNs. But how they're choosing, figuring out how to integrate it into programs and services so that if you're an LPN, you actually would get something for your membership. They haven't figured that out yet.
And even the advocacy. So much of
Right,
the advocacy is around registered nurses. And
right.
so when you start to look at that differently, and I, we talked a lot in our group about that advocacy is an important part of ANA, and how then do we include that? Say RN staffing. Now it becomes, what's LPN staffing? And how is that, if that's a big political animal that we're going to take on, then where's that method of inclusion? And then I think the other thing is, and I know you touched on this, Kathy, too, is that where's the benefit? Because when you look at it from my perspective, and I started out as an LPN. I started out as a nursing assistant, went into an LPN. When you look at every article that's written or any of that, most of that is geared towards RNs. So even in our journal, the nurse journal. So what does that look like in the future for a benefit? And so, I mean, in our more local, we're the Minnesota Organization of our Registered Nurses. So what does that look like? And I think that's where our board is going to have to step back and go, okay, what do we offer also? And what does that look like? And we have an LPN organization, and we have strong union, LPN union. So there's quite a bit of factors for our organization.
And Minnesota is the only state that has registered nurse in their name. So
Yep.
it's from like an articles of incorporation, all those kind of components. Minnesota is the only one. I mean, I was telling Kathy the other night or I think it was Monday night when we checked in, I still have the steno pad from 2011 when we were naming the organization and all the different options that we had on the table and how long it took us to get to this one. I think it might have taken a few of the clandestine meetings at my Molly Maxwell's house with her husband feeding us to get to that point. But I mean, it wasn't something that was taken on lightly, and there was great purpose behind that. So I think it's just, yeah, we're the only ones who would have that because that's going to be a barrier, a big barrier for us in Minnesota. So I think it's going to take time, but it's going to be an interesting journey, I think. I know the bylaws committee is gearing up for a lot of states submitting changes to their own bylaws in order to transition with this, and just how are they going to be able to support and potentially given, suggested language so that it's easier for people to kind of place it in their bylaws and not have it be such a large amount in there. I think there's components, and how do you do that so that you're not overwhelming with bylaws changes, to be able to get the same meaning and impact in integrating it in your own state bylaws. So more to come on that, I'm sure.
What
And
do you think, Martha?
the code of ethics. Well, I, like many of you, started out as an LPN and couldn't believe then I wasn't included in ANA. It's like I'm a nurse. It's right in my title. What do you mean I can't be? So, yes, I think that the way that we integrate them and the way we bring the different practice areas, there are some who would argue LPNs are not professionals. And so a whole lot of discussion has to happen about the words we use. And it's wonderful. Nursing is wonderful, and LPNs do nursing the same way. And so to have them included, but it's going to take some understanding and of society after we've been arguing for so many years about ourselves as professionals and trying to make the baccalaureate a prerequisite and to come sort of full circle now and say, and however, LPNs are share equal membership. It's a very complicated conversation, and we are still having the entry into practice with this slide that was up before about the money for professional education and LVNs who are members. Anyway, it's very
Complicated.
very complicated, and we're not speaking out of both sides of our mouth, but we're sort of with multiple conversations going at the same time, all of which are valuable conversations, but many of them are very contradictory.
Mhm.
And so we're going to perhaps need to decide which ones we're going to stand behind and move forward as the years progression. Some of these legislation issues become more tangible, especially in a financial way. You know, if nurses can't get money for graduate education, that's a real problem. And to what extent are we willing to change names of, there's been discussion about those who have bachelor's or graduate degrees should have one name, and those nurses who practice with LVN 2-year grad should have another name. But the universality of nurse is maybe not going to serve us well as we move forward. And this may be something that ignites that conversation once again. So fascinating, lots of
It
work.
is. And if we don't do it well, we could disenfranchise LPNs more as their members than by not allowing them to be members. So it's really important to do a good job of this and be thoughtful about it.
And they are nurses, and they do establish relationships and practice with loving kindness
Hmm.
always. So anyway,
Yep.
interesting, very in.
Yeah.
I'll stay tuned.
Yes, more to come.
All right, retirement's not knocking on my door the way I thought it would.
Dang.
All
It's not
right.
boring.
No, it's not boring. So then we're just going to go into the dialogue forums, and so what happens at membership assembly is that we did look at the bylaws, and then it goes into the dialogue forums, and dialogue forums are usually through submissions from states, organizations, or individuals where they believe there's an issue or something that needs to be addressed and should have some support and shape ANA policy. And so that's what we have that we had this time. No, I think that it was also just for FYI, it was the 130th anniversary, and there was a lot of celebration around that of the ANA 130th anniversary. So just kind of that was all over. In fact, we all got bling around the 130th. And I haven't seen anyone wear it, Seth. I haven't seen you wear your bling, but um, I think that the what they did this year, which they really focused a lot on meeting forums. And I know Jennifer and Christy and I think Seth, you all attended some of, I think, the pre-meeting before assembly kind of information on these forums, right? And had some information. I mean, it felt like there was a lot more work in the background. Historically, when we've gone, and Jennifer, you've gone a long time, historically these forums can go on for hours in dialogue, and they were really pretty short and concise this year. So really we had, at a glance, there's 3 dialogue forums that were adopted. We had over 400 nurse leaders there. And what happens is the proposals go in, the committee frames the issues, and then there's dialogue, and they discuss it, and then our goal at the meeting is really to refine anything that really is difficult to understand, not necessarily wordsmith it, although I think sometimes that occurs. But it is intended really to look at at getting a collaboration on the issue and being able to move it forward. And then we adopt it. So there were 3 of them this year, and the incivility and bullying framework, the healthcare sustainability, and the cannabis nursing competencies. And so I'll just talk a little bit about them. So first up was the establishing a framework for the prevention, reporting, and accountability of incivility and bullying. And we know that that's an issue. It's an issue in almost every kind of practice setting where there is incivility and bullying. And the form really focuses on the prevention, having some shared expectations and culture, healthy culture, and then what are the clear reporting requirements of that, and where's the accountability and follow through of organizations to hold that behavior to a common standard so that really nurses are protected in the workplace. And so that passed. And I don't think there was really outside of like 7 people that didn't agree. Other than that, this was really like who can really argue with having ANA support a healthy work environment that is civil without bullying. So that was one of the dialogues. Any questions on that at all? I have below who was it submitted, and Kathy would know these people better than I would around where they all belong. But any questions on that one? All right, our next one was the sustainability and the environment, mentally a sustainable healthcare, and we're really blessed in a large number of our members really have a passion for this, and so our organization in of itself is pretty active in the sustainability. Again, we really do want to look at the waste and emissions, and we know that we're the largest part of the workforce, and so we can really lead practical change. And so that's what this was about. And it's really to reduce the footprint, to cut waste and resource use in everyday clinical practice, and having that type of information available, and having organizations support that, protecting the health, looking at the stewardship to patient and community outcomes, and then actually equipping nurses to drive sustainability in systems and policy. And so this again was another one that really went through pretty quickly. Not a lot of a lot of support in this area. I think people are really recognizing, especially when we are looking around in the environments that we are, that something has to sustain our environments, and nursing is in the forefront because we're a large organization that can help. So, any questions on that one? Would our team add anything? No?
So there's alignment with the code of ethics too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, totally aligns with the code of ethics.
Good.
All right. Yeah, Martha.
No, I'm just saying it's great that how well it lines up with the code of ethics. I mean, we've got it written out very clearly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's great that A&A got behind it, huh? Sorry.
Kicking and screaming.
Mm.
All right. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tara, because this is a passion of hers.
Yeah, one of the dialogues, well, the last one that they discussed was basically educating nurses in cannabis and the safety of it, and also just because there's some stigmatism around it, just having that compassionate care for patients. Because when we are in school, we really don't learn anything about cannabis, and then also in the hospitals, it's kind of unknown on what to do with those patients and also the plant itself. So the dialogue forum was just getting to educate more and train our nurses on cannabis. And I thought the whole process for the dialogue forums were really interesting too, because people got to speak, and then they also did change kind of how they wanted to word how they were going to do it. Because for the cannabis one, at first it was just one webinar that they were going to educate nurses, but now it's kind of a series that they want, like continuing education for nurses on cannabis, so that us as nurses are able to implement it and advocate it a little bit more, as it becomes more and more common in our workplace and also in homes and patients using it. So I think it's really important that we have that education as nurses. And yeah, that's all I have for that part of the dialogue forum as far as cannabis goes. But they did add in there, so the environmental waste one, that the plant also helps in reducing the waste as well, with the if we were to use hemp instead of like our microplastics and stuff like that, it would have reduced a lot of that waste that we are contributing to in healthcare. So um, I don't know what else to say about that dialogue forum.
I think it was one that a lot of people were really paying attention to because, like the general nursing population, that there were a lot of us that just didn't know that much about it. So it was one where we were learning as we were having the discussion, which I think it makes a perfect dialogue forum. The other two, in my evaluation, I suggested that maybe they weren't the best selections for a dialogue forum because we already had um, policies around those things, and they weren't controversial. And so, you bring all of these people together to discuss something that's that's important and that there's many opinions for, it's an opportunity to have real discussion. So I encourage them to look at the process for how they decide what topics that they use in the future. But this one was great.
I also thought that it was going to be a lot more contentious than it turned out to be. There really wasn't a whole ton of people against it, more so just like wanting further clarification, and like Tara said, the instead of just a webinar, a series of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that to your point, this is something that really, it's nice to see that A&A put it in the forefront, because it is one of those things that as nurses, we really don't talk a lot about, and we know we're dealing with patients with it. And when we don't know a lot about it, we're not doing our best nursing care. So it was really good to bring something in the forefront that is really happening that we're not probably addressing very well. So I thought it was really a good topic and help us to start to learn and where do we go for education and research and that type of stuff. So good. Any questions on that? All right. So what happens is really it goes from dialogue. So the adopted recommendations then now will have the staff and the board will start to give us feedback as to what they're doing about these things, and it does lead in the direction for the next year. All right.
I think we kind of covered that.
Yeah, agree. Should have moved it up.
Yep. Oh well. So there's really the format for membership assembly allows for new business to be brought before the assembly, but it's not easy to get it actually there. And so there were a group of 16 states that worked to introduce a resolution on embracing transparency and engagement in ANA political action and congressional candidate support. And we started working on that way before membership assembly and then tried to figure out how to get it heard. And that was challenging, but there was a resolution. And it really, in the past, the process that the Political Action Committee used to, because ANA does congressional endorsements, the states don't. But they used to ask for the input of the state. So, like, I would get a form that said, we're considering endorsing representative blah 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 for re-election, and does your organization have any challenges with that? Do you have any reason why we should not do that? So, and we'd fill out the form, send it back in, they'd endorse. One time they sent me the check to give to, they endorsed Angie Craig for um, her congressional district, and I was able to give her the check at a fundraising event, and um, I actually was I always like going to the fundraisers when they're in big houses on Summit Avenue in St. Paul. And this was at a big house in Summit Avenue. And I was invited to be the person who actually introduced Angie at the meeting, which gave ANA a great platform at the state level. And that all we've had a staff change and the process changed, and it's been really hard to figure out who even is being endorsed. So this was just asking for some transparency on the process and some ability to engage with the state around that. And um, it was written in a way that was not should not have been taken poorly, but I think some staff thought it was um, uh, not not kind to them. But so it was hard to get it done. But it finally, through a lot of maneuvering, it was sort of heard as a discussion rather than a formal resolution. And the ANA board did take a vote to send the recommendations in this resolution to the Board of Trustees for the PAC for them to look to see how they might be able to make changes that would allow the process to be clearer and more transparent. So it was interesting. The people who were all working on this were all together in a uh, what do you call that? In a signal group. And so I would be getting messages about that throughout the whole meeting. So it was kind of the only real drama of the meeting. And we got the deed done, so,
Yep.
and it shouldn't have been that hard. But that's the end of that.
All right. Seth.
So this was my first membership assembly, and back when they put out um a call for candidates, I applied for the um nominations and elections committee and kind of didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Um with I'm part of the my hospital's nursing union, and I have a position on the nominations and elections committee there. So I thought it was going to be somewhat similar to that, and it was not. It was a lot more than I was expecting it to be, but it was a really, really cool experience. Um, I made a flyer to hand out at the tables. Got to meet a lot of really, really interesting people. Um, I'm a part of the ANA Next Gen nurses, one of the ambassadors, and there was some of the other members there as well representing their states. So I got to go talk to a few different states like Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts. Um, and so there was a morning where we were all at our tables talking with people. Um, I was asked to give my spiel, why I wanted to join. And then we had um, the candidate forum, which is it was a 2-minute presentation for myself going and speaking. Sorry.
I have to say that well, Seth's there. I will give a plug. I have to say I think his speech was the best speech
Oh,
because he
good.
did a really good job of not just necessarily giving his background, but really the things that he was hoping to do and bring. So it wasn't just all about his background, which I mean, a lot of people will do. I mean, because that's, you have 2 minutes. It's a short amount of time. They will shut off your microphone if you hit the 2-minute time, and they've gotten really good at that. So, but he did a really good job in his speech in
Good.
his 2-minute time, giving those components and just really like, this is my background, but also this is what I would like to do. So I thought that was a really good speech.
Oh,
We should
good.
hear it.
Kathy, I'd like to say something.
Yeah,
Oh, my
yes.
name is Mary Tanner. Um, and Kathy, thanks for what you said. But I was so glad this year that we were getting new MNORN members to go to ANA this year, but because politically what's happening, it was such a good idea. So that's good. And Seth, when I saw your picture, it's like, oh, I know what's behind you there. So I know you were in Duluth, but all of you, I think one of the issues that has been going on for a long time is that I think a lot of general people don't know about the changes, how nurses are being identified, and a lot of college students don't identify ANA and the work that they've done for so long for nursing. And, in a state like Minnesota, how many nursing organizations are there? what's the difference between M&A for us and MNORN, why we have to identify who our organization is. And Kathy, the list of what you identified that we've been working on for so long, at the national level, that was really good. So,
Thanks, Mary.
yeah.
That was one of the things that I have talked about a few different times is when I was in nursing school. So I've been to now three different nursing schools, and I have yet to hear any of them talking about ANA membership or MNORN. So the way that I became a part of it was when I was a new grad. I was in a new grad residency program, and one of the leaders of that sent out the application form for me to become a next gen ambassador.
Mm.
Applied, got that, and they sent me to Magnet and Pathways, which was one of the coolest experiences I've had in my life.
Oh, good.
And so then that kind of drove me to become more involved in MNORN and become more involved in my union that I'm a part of. So,
And now
and
serving
also,
at A&E.
yeah.
I gotta add to the list now, Seth. I a little less than a month, but now you gotta add it to the list.
I know. Yeah, it was a really cool experience. I did not like speaking in front of everybody, but people told me I did well.
You didn't
The
grow up.
that yes, I almost had to run off the stage. I didn't go to the bathroom before,
And there's a
and they make you
long line of people that you have to like wait through, and they have to sit up in front. Their backs are to the entire people that are there listening to their candidate forum. So there's a whole line of people up there. But yeah, it went well.
I was giving my speech and they hold up a card saying like 1 minute remaining and then 15 seconds remaining. And I can tell watching my speech back when she holds the cards up because everything, like my whole body just like stopped working. But it was really cool to meet all of the different the uh people running for different positions. Myself, along with Mavis and Jacqueline, were elected for the nominations and elections. Um, Josephine was reelected as the staff nurse director. Um, for directors at large, it was Dr. Emily and Dr. Nelson. President was Dr. Anita Girardi, who was the previous vice president. And then secretary was Dr. Heidi Sandberg. So it was really cool to have actually a front row to watch everybody give their speeches. And yeah, it was a very unique experience. When I found out the results, I originally was going to have them email it to me because I had to catch a flight and I didn't know if I was going to be there for when the results came out. But I was able to go pick up my results and then not have to say anything after. And people kept talking to me about it, and I'm like, I can't say anything, but
Do not play poker with Seth because he did not show, he gave no indication of the outcome of the election at all. So do not ever play poker with him because you will
I
I
think
think a lot of that was nerves.
lose.
it's very exciting for us to have somebody from the Minnesota organization to be represented, and I think that that's really important. I do think that it was a shock when I first watched when Nicole was up for election on all the work and all the things that people do. It is a big event, and I think that unless you're there, you really don't know what a big event it is, right, Seth? So I
Yes.
don't it's probably a good thing nobody warned you about the big event, or you may not have run.
Yeah, I kept getting the emails from the current NEC about, oh, here you can make your candidate statement. There's this, there's that. Oh, if you are gonna provide stuff at the tables, it can't be more than $200 worth of stuff. There is just
Hmm.
a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Knowing now, there are things I would do differently,
Right.
but I still was successful at being elected, so.
Yep. End result was great. We were happy.
Yes.
Good.
Yep. Anything else on your slide, Seth?
I don't think so.
All right. Do you want to, let's see, this one we just kind of the upcoming elections. This is what will be open,
Yes.
and just to really have everybody start to think about it. These are open. You have, if you decide to go, and I know that Christy, we're trying to get her to do the vice president or board, one of those, right? Board.
Yeah, the director at large. Not
Come
vice
on.
I
president.
already have votes for you, so you better run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to put forward some candidates for this upcoming year. And so if somebody's interested, please let us know. You've got experts. I mean, Jennifer has been an expert. Kathy's an expert. Mary Tanner, you've helped in lots of those elections yourself, right?
Uh, yes.
So there's lots of expertise
Oh,
in
yeah.
our group to help support anybody who would really feel strongly
I
to.
love doing it, but Kathy, you've done such a wonderful job too. You keep doing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
If people are
People know
considering,
Kathy.
yeah, if people are considering running, those who are on the meeting, please just, or people you're talking to, the call for elections comes up quick. So it comes up in like December. I think the first call will
Yeah.
go out.
I
And
think
it
it's
and it kind of goes over into January. So just kind of keep it on your radar. And if you have questions about like what needs to be included or what things you'll be asked, because there is types of questions, just reach out to somebody in MNORN because we can kind of help guide on some of that even before, so prep work even before the official portal opens for application.
And it's nice too if you just give us a heads up that you're thinking of running. Because otherwise, we see your name when it gets put on the ballot and it's like, oh, I didn't know that. And there were a couple of times in the last bit that somebody that I didn't even know had put their name on the ballot for like one person for treasurer.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, do you want to talk about it? Because her name was on the ballot. And so we had a conversation and she figured out that, no, she wasn't even going to go to the meeting. And, she just didn't know what she didn't know. And then there was another person who was wanting to run for the board, but what she really wanted to do was something very different. So, being able to just talk through what you're thinking is helpful. And then it helps us too that we don't have to say, I was getting calls from people saying, well, who is this person? And I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah. Well, and you can put something in the next newsletter too, Kathy.
Yeah, I'll probably wait until closer to when the thing is coming. But yeah, when the call comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I think the initial call was like late October, early November,
Yeah, I think like
and the
the
second
minute that
call
is the
was
least
December.
convenient.
Yeah.
I will say that when I was on I'm in elections, we talked about adjusting when the call goes out. What ends up impacting when the call goes out is because in bylaws, there's things of how far before the membership assembly, the slate has to be published, but we also have to make sure we have a full slate. And if you have to do multiple calls, like more than one call for candidates, you have to like march the calendar back. And we like looked at it multiple different ways, like could we adjust it so it's not over the holiday break because that's just a really bad time. But based on the calendar, we kept mark and to give the bandwidth, there like wasn't a better option other than like opening it earlier. I think that was something that they were talking about, but it was, yeah, that was really difficult and we tried to find a different way to do it, but it wasn't going to happen.
When you think about it this year, Seth, having it in conjunction when the Leadership Summit is happening would be good. Because
Yeah.
then all the executive directors and presidents are at a meeting, and you could say we're sending out the call on Monday or something, and that would be a good time. And that's always the beginning of December.
I know that for myself, I started my application during the first call and I didn't finish it because it was the holidays. And so I did the second time they did a call. I finished the application because it's a lot. It's extensive.
Mhm.
Yep.
That should have been my first clue.
So we had it was really fun. Membership assembly is always fun because you're with nurses and you're talking about things that are important, and then you're just catching up on what's been going on and meeting new people, and that's the whole experience is fun. But it was really fun this year having um, three people who had never been before, and so helping them think that it was something that they'd ever want to do again. But it was fun. I think it was fun for us to have Seth and Nick and Tira there, and they were fabulous. So you should be really proud of Minnesota's delegation.
It was very, very fun. I'm looking forward to the next ones.
All right. Our last slide, and I know we've run over a little bit. We've probably covered most things, but is there anything else that we'd like to? I think we probably want to talk, Kathy, you want to talk a little bit about the past presidents.
Oh, that was for me the highlight.
It was so.
Barbara Nichols just died. She was president in the late 80s. She was an amazing leader. She's from Wisconsin and California, and just really uh, uh, an amazing, amazing leader. She was also the first Black president of ANA, and hearing her tell stories, she was amazing storyteller. And over the last few years, it turned out that she and I would be in the same place at the same time by chance, and then I'd get to hear some stories, and so she was amazing, and um, she videotaped her remarks for this panel. They had a panel of the past presidents from Barbara Nichols up until the current president. And the past presidents all talked about what happened during their presidency and the ways that some of them we had really done, ANA had done a lot around the issue of healthcare reform from the late 80s until the ACA passed. And by getting involved in trying to create the policy around that, the opportunities that our past presidents had to be appointed into different positions and to have access to the president of the United States, and so they each told their story about what happened during their term of office. And I'm hoping that that was recorded because it was a gem. I've also talked to a couple of the past presidents about how they need to each write a chapter in a book because we don't have that history written down yet of what happened during their presidencies. So it was really special.
Here, you have to talk about the calm room.
That room is so fabulous. Terry, you got to talk about it.
I was
I
in there
never
so
went.
much. They had two massage chairs, they had a couple yoga mats, nice little lounge chairs, stress balls, like strawberry basil flavored water and the dark calm music. And yeah, I definitely went in there quite a bit just because, you know, it was calm. And I'm not the most chatterbox of a person, so that was kind of my quiet area rather than staying out with everyone. And talking. So it was, yeah, I told Seth, you got to go in there. You got to go in there. They had these bands that you could pull and little balls that you could squeeze. And
I still
yeah.
didn't go. I didn't make it.
But there are only two massage chairs. So it was like if you went in there and people were there, I think they had a limit of maybe 10 minutes. So you got booted out, but I think our breaks were only about 10 minutes long. And
Five.
yeah, so it was quick.
I
Any?
guess for me, I like to mention one thing that always stands out for me anytime doing a national or international type event is just the importance of keeping in mind and connecting with people in other places to really also understand what's going on across the country. I think it puts a lot of things in context for what's going on with nursing and healthcare and all of the other things that impact health for people. So that's always one of the things I think about. And just, like with Tira and making the connections that you did with nurses there too, it's just fun to see that happen, to be in a space where you might not normally otherwise meet individual nurses, that you might want to connect with. And so it's just there's just all sorts of opportunity, everything from political action to hanging out in the calm room to implementing or impacting directly how ANA proceeds in the future. As we carry forth advocacy for nurses, patients, communities, all of it. So I love it. I'm grateful for the experience.
I can add my story real quick with the connections that I made just because I wasn't sure what to expect going in. And like I said, I'm not super chatty, but when they did the dialogue forum about the cannabis, it really struck a nerve in me. And I had a husband who was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma 6 months after we were married, and it was a very tough path in the hospital, out of the hospital, a lot of different regimens for pain medications. And towards the end, cannabis was one of the things, because I don't think his pain ever really went away, but I think cannabis was one of the things that really helped him get through the end of life there. And it's just when I went to when we were at the membership assembly, it was like this whole world had opened up that I didn't really know about, and all of the nurses there that were advocating for it, and it just really wanted me to get in there and speak with the nurses about my experience, and then now what I can do to help educate and advocate and implement, even not only for like hospitals, because when we were in the hospital with his cannabis, the nurses were like, "Oh, I don't know, sorry, what to do, and I don't know where to put it." Like they would just lock it up and put it somewhere he wasn't really allowed to use it in the hospital. So just knowing that there's nurses out there that are trying to advocate and mostly educate more nurses about how to use it. And with me having more geriatric experience, I was able to connect with the whole board of the American Cannabis Nurses Association and get a little deeper dive into how it works and how it affects our system. They even gave me a little book to read about. So I don't know if you can see it here, but it was a really cool experience, and I'm super excited kind of what's next for me in the cannabis world, and more so educating and having that experience and being able to share that story about my late husband. And I'm excited to go back, and I'm also excited to learn more and connect with more nurses about how we can make that happen.
Yeah.
And Tara has promised to do a member meeting about cannabis, so she'll be teaching all of us.
Thank you. Lots to learn.
Hmm.
Remember my first question of the evening? What did we learn in nursing school we should now forget? That probably jumps to the top of the list, huh?
Yeah, true. Yeah, I learned you have cannabis, you lose your license. So times have changed in some ways.
Well, as we close, are there any questions? We had a fun time. We're blessed by this assembly, that our group that lets us all go and helps your dues help us pay to go. And so we're very, very grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how much of a memorable experience that I had and having the opportunity to meet all of the different people, not even just in the MNORN, but across the United States and the Virgin Islands and Guam. And it was really, really cool. Loved having dinner at um, Cuba Libre.
That was fun.
The Minnesota tradition.
I thought you were going to say at the PAC event.
That was really cool too, though. I won an
So,
award there.
so yeah, we elect members to go to membership assembly every other year. So it won't be this year, it'll be next year, I'm pretty sure. But think about running, because if you want to go, you have to run, and you can get elected, and you can, even if you're not elected, you might be able to go because somebody else can't who has gotten more votes than you. So it's something that you should consider doing in the future. It's a good thing.
Mhm.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
So now that I'm on the NEC, am I not allowed to be one of the alternate representatives?
I believe so.
Yeah, so they'll just take you off of that. Yeah. Well, no, we might have to look into that.
You can hang out with us.
There's something about that because you can still vote. No, you can still be.
I
I'll
don't.
look at that because I know we had people at the nominating elections committee table when we were
Mhm.
nominating elections committee that had like their click that were having to vote. So
Okay.
we might have to look at that. I think that might, I mean, we would be able to find a different alternate, but like, so he wouldn't necessarily fill both, he could do both roles, but we also could have the opportunity because he's there in a different capacity. But I believe they can still be voting in that space. Yeah. So
Okay. We'll figure it out.
I'll take a peek at it.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Well, thank you. Thanks all too for presenting and any questions. And if not, have a great night. Thank you for letting us indulge your time a little bit
Yeah,
over.
thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, good.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Night,
everyone.
everyone.
Take care,
Good night.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you.